I'm Steve Strohmenger. I run the risk control and compliance teams here at PBF Energy. Within that, I have several teams under me, including the compliance, a risk solutions team, the contracts team, and middle office operations. I've been at PBF for about 7 years now, but I've pretty much been in energy my entire career. So just for PBF, in case you don't know, we are actually one of the largest independent refiners and suppliers of unbranded transportation fuels and other petroleum products. We have 6 refineries around the country, 2 here in the Northeast, 1 in the Midwest, 1 down the Gulf Coast, and 2 out on the West Coast. We have, between all 6, we have about a combined processing capacity of about 1 million barrels per day. We have, because of where our refineries are, we have access to most markets in the oil and gas space across the country and overseas as well. We can purchase crude and feedstock from pretty much all over the world, and we sell our products in the US, mainly in the US, but internationally as well. The refineries have pretty high complexity numbers, so they can process most grades of crude oil, so your heavy, lights, sweets, and sours, and that allows us to source products at the best prices from all over the world. We're not limited to any certain particular type of crude. And the products we sell are all grades of gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, heating oil, asphalt, and your petrochemicals. So for us, it's really started as a company-wide initiative to start automating processes. And when it came down to my groups, my initial focus was on our contracts team, since they really have the most manual and time-consuming work out of pretty much all the other groups that report into me. If you don't know, the physical energy business is extremely complicated. Even your most basic vanilla transactions really have a number of commercial terms that are a part of every transaction. So your product name, your effective dates, the price, the pricing dates, your method of transportation, your Incoterms, delivery locations, all that stuff. All those terms, we need to validate and confirm for every transaction. And when you have 6 refineries processing about 1 million barrels a day, that volume of daily transactions can be pretty high. And the only way for us to know that our transactions are correct is to validate them against some third-party document, whether that's a counterparty confirm or a broker recap. So the process prior to onboarding ClearOpx was the process to reconcile all those terms between the incoming documents and our system for every transaction was very manual. It was time consuming and prone to error. And while this function, this reconciling all these documents, this function is extremely important. I often refer to the team as our first line of defense. It's not the only process that these guys do. It's one of many. So the challenge for us was, how do we catch every trade error that comes along? How do we prevent those errors from flowing downstream? If we have an error, I want to find it and I want to fix it right away. So how do we automate that, and how do we possibly use AI to do that for us? And ClearOpx and the platform was really a logical fit for us. They understood the needs and the challenges that we face, plus they have the experience and the business knowledge to accommodate all that. So the goal became to really reconcile, automate the reconciliation process for all those incoming documents for brokers and counterparties. So we basically needed a system to read every incoming document, every incoming third-party document, extract all the relevant commercial terms from the document, who the buyer, who the seller is, the product, the price, the volume, find the relevant trade to match against it within our system, compare all those terms, and let us know if there were any discrepancies, if they match, or were there any discrepancies. The initial scope, we started with just our broker recaps, because they are very reliable about sending those. We usually get those either at the end of the day on the trade date or on T+1. The next phase, we will move on to our counterparty contracts, but sometimes in our business, on the physical side, if you are the seller, your paper governs. So we could just send out a contract and never hear back from our counterparties. So that's why we started with the brokers. And I mean, again, the goal was basically just the last thing we want to do is not be able to collect money on an invoice because of some error that wasn't caught way back earlier in the process. So, you know, in terms of our lessons learned, I think you start small and you build on those early successes. Like I said, we have a complex business. We have thousands of products from all over the world. They all have different grades. They have different specifications. And within that, we name something differently versus what a broker will name something. So naming conventions can be different. We call something CBOB Reg 83.5. They call it regular gasoline. So how do you match all those up? So we started with a small population of brokers that we use repetitively and with a certain group of products, and start mapping those naming conventions, and then we built on from there. We also found that we could use the platform to automate processes beyond the initial scope of the brokers and counterparty confirms. So as we've seen with the system, it's got a lot of potential just outside of just the reconciliations we're doing. So we have a number of other manual processes, like saving down all the documentation related to a particular transaction that's either incoming and outgoing. So if the system can read all that, collect all that documentation on a for each transaction, it can actually provide a clearinghouse for, if you need to look up a deal, you can go look, and the system has already gathered all those documents for you. The last thing we really found was using the tool to develop metrics and see how we can use those to drive change in our organization. Not only do we not only have a way of capturing the errors, we have a way of recording them and producing metrics around those, so we can use that to say, who are the biggest offenders? What kind of problems are they making all the time within the trade entry process? And then we can possibly target training towards those. You know, here's how you're supposed to book these deals with these certain prices. We also have a way of keeping senior management informed of all the issues. And ultimately just coming down to improving the process and reducing those errors from flowing downstream. So that's where we are.